Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Aztec Minerals, chatting again with the president and CEO Simon Dyakowski. Aztec is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AZT and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZZTF. Simon and I are going to be recapping news from earlier this week, November 5th, announcing, I believe, the best drill result ever on the Tombstone Project. Hole 17 hit little over 8 grams per ton gold and almost 50 grams per ton silver over 36 and a half meters. That also included a high grade area of almost 60 grams per ton gold and 158 grams per ton silver over 4.6 meters. So, Simon, let's start off by focusing on this hole number 17. Give us some insights here on the mineralization and where on this project this hole was drilled, please.
Sounds good, Corey. Thanks for the opportunity to come on and to explain these drill results a little bit. So we did drill hole 16 and 17 in the northeastern part of the contention zone. And the reason for this targeting was twofold. I mean, one, there was a pretty big knowledge gap there for us. We hadn't completed defensive drill holes that far east in the pit. So if you look at our plan map, you'll see that that fence is now getting a little bit more filled in with 17A, 17, and 16. And also we targeted this based off of our 3D model, which incorporates, our best guesses of the old underground mines of the Tombstone district. And one target that we were really interested in was the head center mine. Now, our model is fairly robust, but it's not completely spatially accurate. We are translating a lot of paper records into three-dimensional space with modern day computer software. So it's a good guide, but it's not to the meter accurate. So we actually thought that the head center mine workings were a little further north, and one of the drill holes that we drilled back in 23 targeted that. And with that hole, we didn't hit economic mineralization, but we did hit some very significant mine shafts that looked to be more like access workings. And so hole 17 validated our target there by hitting, some residual mineralization from the head center mine further south. So that was really the reason that we drilled in that area. And since then, we've actually put a hole a little bit further north in, about 25, 30 meters further north, filling in the gap of knowledge there. So we're really excited to grow this mineralization to the north and to the east, where we seem to have a higher percentage component of gold than to silver. And as we move further south, we have more silver content in with the gold. So it's good, it's a good little area to be poking around in there. So we pushed the mineralization really out to the northeast with these 3 drill holes.
Okay, makes sense. So you're following up on this, and this was the best hole ever that has been drilled at this project. Is that right?
Well, that is right. I mean, depending on if you're more interested in gold or silver, but just on a gold alone basis, and this is non-43101 compliant language that I'm about to use, but taking the grade times the width of this hole just on gold alone, and I think we're about 275 or 280 gram meters just on gold with no equivalent. And so it's about 40-50% better than our previous best results. So we're excited about that. I mean, Tombstone has had a lot of meaningful widths of high grade gold and silver in this near surface or shallow oxidized setting. So I think a few times that we've had these calls, Corey, I think I've been touting the best ever. And so here we have the best ever once again. It's pretty exciting. And I think this was our 84th hole in the sequence of drilling to date, from our involvement here with the drill machine over the last 5 years. So just goes to show you why we're still expanding here. I mean, we're still growing this oxidized footprint, and we're, waiting eagerly for additional drill results. And you'll notice in our plan map that there are quite a few holes pending from the south central area of the contention zone here, and also some new targets to the west entirely.
Yeah, I have those noted. We'll get to those, but before we get to some of these upcoming results, just a quick question. Explain to us within this news release, there's hole 16, hole 17, and hole 17A. What happened with the 17 and 17A, please?
Yeah, so 17A, we hit a stope like very shallow and lost circulation. So we pulled up and reoriented the drill and re-drilled it. So that's how we just labeled the hole. So hole 17 ended up being the second hole off of that pad. And then 16, we got a good test on without losing any circulation. And that one hit 50 meters of 70 grams silver equivalent. So that was a decent hit as well and continues to push the mineralization under the pit floor to the east also. So, in the grand scheme of things, while we don't have a resource yet or a PEA, we can't say with any third-party validation that we have economics around this, but it's encouraging at least to have this very high-grade oxidized mineralization so near surface. It's promising for potential open pit mining payback to have the grade sort of in an area that's accessible without too much pre-strip.
All right, let's talk about some of these other drilling areas. If anyone wants to pull up that plan map in that news release, a lot of drilling in, let's just call it that south central area. So a little bit south of where holes 16 and 17 are from this news release. What insights can you give us there? How are those holes looking? When will we get those results, do you think?
Yeah, so they look good. I mean, I'd say when I say they look good, it's a little bit hard to eyeball definitively, what's going to run and what's not. That's just the nature of RC drilling. It's not, we don't have intact core, and in the history of our results at Tombstone, we've sometimes been the most surprised with rock that looked, sort of middle of the road, including even hole 16 of last year, which had the very rich silver grade over a few meters near surface. So everything looks to be expected in the context of Tombstone. In terms of turnaround time, unfortunately, the lab has been a little bit delayed, and we've been assured that the delays are being worked through. So I can't, point to, a daily or a weekly schedule, but we do hope to have one or two additional batches of drill holes out over the next 6 weeks. And then I would expect that into January we'll have, a lot of news flow with some of these holes that are being drilled right now or later in the sequence in the lab. So we have 16 in the lab as of the news release date. We should drill another 10 to 15 or so by the end of the year. So that gives us an additional, around 30 drill holes to be reported well into 2026. And that's excluding the core drilling that's also happening at the property at this time.
So, Simon, with all the drilling that's happened in and around this contention main pit zone, which we can see on that plan map, any chance you'd move towards a resource? Is there tight enough spacing to even put out a resource if you wanted to?
There is tight enough spacing, and that is something that we are contemplating. We do want to make sure that we get all of the data from this RC drilling into an initial resource. It would be, in our view, a little bit of a mistake to start a resource and to have, some of these additional 30 holes excluded. So that might push things out a little bit next year, but we do plan to give, a formal update to the market early in January with respect to plans for getting an initial resource out that should make the timing and extent of the data within the resource a little bit more clear.
Okay, let's also look to the west because there's some, it looks like, well, clearly new discovery potential holes, hole 18, 19, and 20 in an area that it doesn't look like anyone's drilled before. So give us some insights on why you're drilling over here and what you're looking for.
Yeah, so we are looking to test these parallel structures that we believe host mineralization. There are underground workings actually out that far west. And if you look closely on the plan map, you can see these sort of white or clearings within the brush. And those are old mine dumps. So there is some historic mine workings in and around these areas. And so holes 18, 19, and 20, we're testing, what we think to be a potentially mineralized dike structure that runs north-south along that trend. So very interested to see what kind of results those holes yield. And, if there is some indication there, we would have, a new plan designed to further investigate. So, and to be clear, this isn't the only target that we have. notice that these holes are on the road. So, the drill rig that we have on site right now is quite large. So you need almost like 100-foot setup to put all the equipment together to safely operate. So we are a little bit constrained to drilling on the road, but if we have some sniffs around those 18, 19, and 20, then we would be able to go and put in proper access for a proper follow-up in a subsequent drill program.
How deep are you drilling those holes?
Those are a couple hundred meters. I think 18 went to almost 200 meters. So did 19. And I think 20 was at a steeper angle, also quite deep. So yeah, like kind of 150 to 200-meter holes.
Simon, what about the CRD drilling too? We've talked about it a few times, the deeper holes, looking at potentially a much bigger prize here as well. How is that progressing?
Yeah, so it is back on. We announced that we had some mechanical challenges with the previous drilling. And so before we reached our target horizon, we had to pause the drilling with the previous RC rig, and the previous core rig, and we've now contracted a new one, and it is mobilizing as we speak. So I think the trucks are driving down to Tombstone from Nevada right now, and we anticipate drilling by the 16th or 17th of November. So I'll be heading down there and supervising a little bit of the startup in about 10 days. And so like we haven't hit the target horizon with the previous rig. I think we put in the news release that we were down about 390 meters. So we're getting very close. And we have a little bit more of the Bisbee group sediment rock to drill through before we anticipate hitting the limestones, which we think will not only drill quite a bit faster, but are also the primary target horizon for any potential CRD, carbonate replacement deposit style polymetallic mineralization. So yeah, a little bit of a pause there, Corey, but we have I think a very capable and technologically sound setup coming down as we speak, and we anticipate, ramping into this core drilling program mid to late November, and then if things go well there, we'll be able to keep drilling well into the new year with multiple targets that we have also pre-colored and identified above and beyond the ones that we've already discussed, which are hole TR2413, TR2416, and TC1.
So, Simon, I had a listener email me this question a couple days ago. Want you to address it as best you can. It's when we look across this project, yes, you've done, I guess, most of the drilling in and around this contention main pit, but it's a pretty big area here. You've tested a little bit of that west side area, also a few holes down in that southern extension. What is, in your eyes, the best target area or the best area broadly on this project?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we've sort of, I guess, delineated different target areas, but essentially it's this contention zone that runs, for about a kilometer north-south that has been the focus. But I'd say, our most interesting upside potential now would be at depth. What's driving the system from down below? That's the CRD target. And then there are these parallel structures, these parallel dykes to the main contention dike. So, I don't want to skirt around the question that your listener is asking. It's just more a question of stepping out systematically to the west. So I'd say at depth and to the west would be, I don't know if I'd call them the favorites, but the areas that, are now better understood, both through the drilling that we've done and through the modeling. And it's also where the pit was scheduled to be expanded to in the 1980s, was further west. So we're getting a handle on the main north pit, but it's continuing to grow to the west.
All right, so Simon, then give us an outline of news flow. Look, you already said a lot of holes at the assay lab. Hopefully that will speed up. But overall, what can we expect news flow wise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for a couple more results before Christmas, like a couple more batches. And then I'd say by the time we get into January, that backlog will have cleared from what we've been told. And the delays, I know all labs are a little slow right now. The delay at our lab is actually also not just driven by demand, but from what I understand, it's also driven by they had to replace a machine, and there was some difficulty in obtaining the parts, which have now been sourced, and that's coming back. So they they do think that things will speed up going into the new year. So really, drill results, drill results, drill results, November, December, January, and then we'll start talking about studying the drill results. And I'm referring to the shallow drill results. In Q1, we'll also have some initial results from the deeper drilling, and depending on how that unfolds, there could be a redesigned program with a lot more emphasis on deeper drilling, subject to our findings on the CRD targets.
All right, Simon, thanks for taking time to outline this hole, especially that hole 17. Again, the best ever that's been drilled at that project, and you've even started following up a little bit more to the north of it. Everyone, thanks for sending in your questions. Please keep those questions coming. You can email me, fleck@kereport.com. Also, click that link in the show notes to visit the Aztec website and read over the recent news. Simon, thank you again for your time. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, Corey, thanks for having me on. Have a great day.